Hello, welcome to another episode of our live stream, My Journey to the Trinity. Hope you guys are having a good day. I hope everything's okay. And my wife was first today, first person in. So yeah, I hope you guys are having a good day. Everything's good and growing in the Lord in His grace. And yeah, I was at work today and I got the idea to look up, I think that, oh, by the way, and before I say anything about today's subject, I just want to say that our friend Yusuf al-Mughallaq, he sent me a message today, and he told me that I was right about what I said yesterday about, there's a surah in the Quran, it's called Surah al-Isra. Isra. And Isra is, when Muhammad went up to paradise on a magic donkey, Isra was the horizontal part of the journey when he went from Saudi, because, in the Quran, the world is flat. And so the magic donkey ride from Mecca to Jerusalem, that's called the Isra. Then the vertical part of the journey from Jerusalem to Jannah, that's called Mi'raj. So it's Isra or Mi'raj. And the surah in the Quran about this is called Al-Isra. Al-Isra. And so, I was talking about it yesterday, that if you look at the word Isra, it's like it's only two letters away from the word Israel, which is Israel. And that surah has two names. One is Isra, that's the one that's in most of the Quran. But the other name is Beni Israel, sons of Israel. And so, and then if you read it, first of all, it talks about Allah taking His servant from one mosque to another, or one sanctuary to another. But the second verse is about Moses and the children of Israel. And so I am of the view, because of this, that Isra is not really Isra. The name of the surah is Isra, but it's supposed to be Israel. It is the surah of Israel. And, why is that a big deal? Well, like I said, the other name of the surah has two names, Beni Israel, sons of Israel, and Isra. And so I think that it's possibly that they were writing it down and they ran out of ink, so where they could not write the E-L at the end of it. It's like in Isra, instead of saying Israel, it's Isra. And that was my reasoning. Why did they take the E-L off? Is because they ran out of ink and they could not finish writing Israel, so they just wrote Isra instead of writing Israel, because it's similar in the English, because in the English ISRA, it just takes the E-L to make it Israel. And I think they just ran out of ink, and so they just call it Isra instead of calling Israel. But Yusuf al-Mughallaq said he believes there's something more sinister and evil behind it. Satanic was his word. And that is that Satan wants to erase what the E-L is, which is, it's the name of God. God is called El. That's why it says Elohim, and it's a part of the name of God. And Satan wants to erase the name of God. And so that was Yusuf al-Mughallaq. So you got two theories as to why it's not called Israel, but it's called Isra. And mine is they ran out of ink. Yusuf al-Mughallaq thinks it's a satanic, sinister plot to erase the name of God. And I think his is a better explanation, by the way. So, Yeah, so hello, Manoj Kumar. God bless you. And um, so, anyway, but for today, what I was going to talk about is, the fact that Muhammad said, let me see if I have it here. Okay, if I don't have it here, I will go ahead and show it to you here. Okay, in Sahih al-Bukhari, I'll show it to you, this hadith. Uh, Muhammad said that Muslims are supposed to take, uh, Abdullah bin Umar mentioned, Abdullah bin Masoud said, I shall ever love that man. I heard the Prophet saying, take the Quran from four: Abdullah bin Masoud, Salim, Muaz, and Ubay bin Ka'b. Okay, and so this is a specific, and it's a Sahih hadith, uh, that they're supposed to take the Quran from four. Okay, they're not supposed to take it from Zayd ibn Thabit, okay, the one who wrote the Quran for Uthman. You're not supposed to take it from Umar. You're not supposed to take it from Abu Bakr. You're supposed to take it from these guys. That's what Muhammad said. But Muslims don't obey Muhammad. And, but even though they don't obey Muhammad, they know that Abdullah bin Masoud, hello, Nagek, Nagok, Nyek, Nyak. um, the hadith does say that Abdullah bin Masoud had the Quran. But the thing about Abdullah bin Masoud's Quran, and in fact, if we look, there's two of them actually. If I don't know about the other two, but I do know about two of these guys. Muhammad said, take the Quran from four: Abdullah bin Masoud, okay, and Salim, Mu'ad, and Ubay ibn Ka'b. Two things we know: that you cannot really do this. You cannot really obey this because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's Quran has 111 surahs in it. Ubay ibn Ka'b's surah, Quran, had 116 surahs in it. Okay, now I don't know about Salim and Mu'az. I don't know what those guys had. But at least two of these guys, the first one is Abdullah bin Mas'ud. His Quran had 111. And you guys know the Quran that people read today has 114 surahs. But Muhammad said take the Quran from Abdullah, not from these other guys. If you take it from Abdullah, you're supposed to have 111 surahs, not 114. And then if you take it from Ubay ibn Ka'b, you're supposed to have 116 surahs. Okay? So today I wanted to look a little bit, since Muhammad commanded people to take the Quran from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, since Muhammad commanded, this is, it's a Sahih hadith, that and the Quran says you're not even a true Muslim until you have no resistance in you to everything Muhammad said. You're supposed to follow. Muhammad with no resistance in yourself to what Muhammad said. And so, and if you do, and you listen to Abdullah bin Mas'ud, then you got a problem because the Quran he had 111 surahs. Okay, and it was missing, and the Quran that Muslims have today has 114 surahs. So what happened to the other three? The three surahs that Abdullah bin Mas'ud took out of his Quran, he just didn't have them in his Quran. There's three surahs Abdullah bin Mas'ud that are in today's Quran. Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, no way, I don't want them in my Quran. And he got into a big fight over this. And they beat him up. they beat him up over this. It was a big deal that he did not accept Zayd's Quran or Uthman's Quran. You know, the Muslims today do not have Muhammad's Quran. They have Zayd's Quran or Uthman's Quran, okay? And Uthman's Quran has 114 surahs. Well, Abdullah's only had 111. So let's just look a little bit into why is it that he only had 111, okay? The three surahs that he does not have is the first surah. The first surah is called Al-Fatiha, the opening. It's the first surah in the Quran. Everybody who has a Quran, and it is the most important surah. It's the first one that every Muslim memorizes, because in order to do the prayers, you have to know this Fatiha. They pray it 17 times a day. If they do their 5 prayers, they pray the Fatiha 17 times a day. Okay, it is the most important surah in the Quran in terms of a recitation. Okay, and it's one of the first that they learn because you can't pray without quoting it. And so it's 7 verses long, and it is the number one. It's the first surah in the Quran. Now, it's not the first surah that came to Muhammad. The first surah that came to Muhammad was 96, Surah 96, you know. But in terms of how they organize the Quran, Fatiha is the number one, is the first surah. So, well, Abdullah ibn Masoud said, no, I don't want it in my Quran. I don't want it. Take it away. And so Abdullah ibn Masoud didn't have the Fatiha. You guys, how could that be? And Muhammad said, take the Quran from Abdullah ibn Masoud. How can a Muslim obey Muhammad and yet and do what Abdullah ibn Masoud, accept his Quran? How can you obey Muhammad and to obey Muhammad, you got to take Abdullah's Quran. But Abdullah's Quran didn't have the first surah, which is the most important one, the one that you're supposed to pray 17 times a day. He said, nope, don't want it. Don't want it in my Quran. And then he also didn't have the last 2 surahs. The last 2 surahs are called Falak Unas. Falak Unas. I think Falak means like universe. Nas means people. And so you're not, those 3 surahs are not in Abdullah bin Masoud's Quran. He just said, no, I don't want it to be in my Quran. Okay. And Muhammad said, take the Quran from Abdullah. Well, he said, I don't want these 3 in my Quran. Well, dude, what happened to perfect preservation? Which one's on the preserved tablet? Which one came to Muhammad? And so Muslims have a really big problem here because, let's see, Osama Daktuk's translation, he doesn't make Al-Fatiha be a verse because, it's not a verse. Oh, okay. Interesting. So let me just look here. Let me just look at the okay, Al-Fatiha. Oh, wow. See, I didn't know that. See, I'll just learn something new here. That in every other surah of the Quran, in the name of Allah, the first word, intro that they use with every surah of the Quran, except for number 9, in the Fatiha, it's actually considered one of the verses. Interesting. Wow, thank you for pointing that out, Houston. So, anyway, Abdullah bin Masoud said, no, I don't want it. It's not in my Quran. And Muhammad said, take the Quran from him. So how can you obey Muhammad and have the Quran with 114 surahs in? How can you obey Muhammad and have a Quran with 114 surahs, which is what every Muslim in the world today has? Because the 37 different Qur'ans we know of: Hafs, Warsh, Susi, Duri, Qalun, Bazi, Khalaf, Ibn Kathir, Jalalain, all of those Qur'ans, there's 37 of them that we know of, they all have 114 surahs in them. Okay, but Abdallah ibn Masoud only had 111. He didn't have the first surah, and he didn't have the last two surahs. And just tell you something about the last two surahs. The last two surahs, called Al-Falaq wal-Nas, those two surahs, you know what happened? You guys have all heard of the story about when Muhammad had witchcraft done on him, black magic. Supposedly, some Jewish guy took one of Muhammad's hairs and he tied 11 knots into the hair. He tied 11 knots into the hair of Muhammad's hair. And then he took, I think he took a comb, Muhammad's comb, for his hair, and he put this, wrapped it up or something, and then put it inside a well. Because of this little contraption, Muhammad was under witchcraft for a whole year. And what happened during that year? Aisha talks about it, that he imagined that he was having sex when he wasn't having sex. With Muhammad, everything is about sex, okay? Okay, let me see. Okay. Let me see if I could find this. Okay. I'm trying to show the hadith. I know you guys know about this already. Okay. Okay, but you guys have heard about this, so, I know that I don't really have to, oh, it's right here. Okay. Let's just look at this, what happened here. I know you guys know about this. Okay, it says, a man called Labid bin al-Assam of the tribe of Banu Zarek worked magic on Allah's apostle. Now, you guys, where does magic come from? Magic comes from Satan, right? And but according to the Quran, Satan cannot touch the righteous. He cannot touch the righteous ones. So how come he could do this to Muhammad for a whole year? For a whole year. And I think this is after he was poisoned too. I mean, he's also poisoned, and he also had this magic worked on him. And it's kind of interesting because he said if you eat 7 dates every day, you won't have magic or poison on you. So if you eat 7 dates every day, it'll protect you from magic and poison. Well, Muhammad had both magic and poison, and he died from the poison. But for a whole year, here, let's see what it says here. Okay, he worked magic on Allah's apostle till Allah's apostle started imagining that he had done a thing that he had not really done. One day or one night he was with us, he invoked Allah for a long period, and then said, "Oh, Aisha, do you know Allah has instructed me concerning a matter?" I asked him, "About what?" He said, 2 men came to me. One of them sat near my head and the other by my feet. One of them said to his companion, "What is the disease of this man?" The other said, "He is under the effect of magic." The first one asked, "Who worked the magic?" He said, "Labid bin al-Assam." The first one said, "What material did he use?" The other replied, "A comb, and the hairs stuck to it, and the skin of pollen of a male date palm." The first asked, "Where is that?" The other, "That is in the well of Darwan." So Allah's apostle, along with some of his companions, went there and came back saying, "Oh, Aisha, the color of the water is like the infusion of henna leaves. The tops of the date palms near it are like the heads of devils." I asked Allah's apostle, what did you not show it to the people? He said, since Allah cured me, I dislike to let the evil spread. So anyway, these two supposed angels came, and one sat in front of him, by his head, one by his feet. And they said, they had this conversation, that Muhammad was under the power of devils. And then they gave him the cure for the 11 knots in the hair, was that they gave him it's kind of like an incantation to break the spell, the magic spell of the 11 knots. And how did they do it? It's with 11 verses. And those last two surahs of the Quran, 113 and 114, one has 5 verses, one has 6 verses. And by the reciting those 11 verses, break the witchcraft off of Muhammad. That was from the 11 knots. In fact, it even talks in those verses about breaking the knots, loosing the knots. So anyway, so the first surah was the one that's used in prayer 17 times. The last 2 were used as an incantation, like a magic spell to break a magic spell off of Muhammad. So anyway, but Abdullah bin Masoud didn't have any of those. So he said, those last 2 surahs, they're for incantation, it's like a magic spell. And the first one is like, it's not a surah. He said it's not a surah. It's a prayer, but it's not a surah. And we could talk about what a prayer it is, because it's supposed to be the words of Allah, but that's for a different episode. But so let's just look at some of the reasons Abdullah bin Masoud gave for not having these surahs in his Quran. Okay, so let's start down here. Okay, let's see. Why did Ibn Masoud not write it in his Mus'haf? If Ibn Masoud did recognize the Fatiha as part of the Quran, why did he not write it in his Mus'haf? He himself solves the riddle. Yeah, right. In a narration given by Abu Bakr al-Anbari, it is stated, okay, 304 AH. So this is like 250 years after this guy died. Abdullah bin Masoud was asked as to why he did not write the Fatiha in his Mus'haf. He replied, if I were to write it, I would write it before every surah. Abu Bakr al-Anbari explains this, saying that every rak'ah in prayer starts with the Fatiha. So that's the explanation, that if he was to write it, he would write it in front of every surah. What kind of an answer is that? What kind of an answer? He says if he was to write it, he would write it in front of every surah. Of the 114 surahs, he would write it at the beginning of every single surah. That was his answer as to why he didn't have it in the Quran. So if that makes sense to you, okay, here's another. And now this is about the 2. Okay, thus we learn if he did not write a certain thing in his Mus'haf. Now listen to this. Serpentine explanation. It says, if he did not write a certain thing in his Mus'haf, it does not mean it was not part of the Quran to his understanding. This is a vital point I will ask the readers to bear in mind. Okay, these are, now I was talking about it's called the Mu'azzatain, which is the last 2, Surah 113 and 114. Ibn Masoud did recognize the 113 and 114 as part of the Quran. The evidence that Ibn Masoud did consider the 113 and 114 as part of the Quran is too strong. Consider the following point. The foremost medium of preservation of the noble Quran has always been the memory of the Muslim masses. Okay, so Almighty Allah said to the Blessed Prophet. Okay, you see, they're trying to come up with an excuse because they're in a pickle, man. This is a big problem. Okay, I told Ubay, your brother, okay, your brother Ibn Masoud erases them, Surah 113, from his Mus'haf, and he did not object. So he told Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abdullah bin Masoud took 113 and 114 off of his Quran. And Ubay said, who cares? He didn't object. And that's particularly important because Ubay added 2 more surahs to his Quran. Because remember, Ubay's Quran has 116 surahs, not 114. So when they told him that Abdullah bin Masoud erased 3 of them, and they says, here, look, he erased them, says, so what? Who cares? So they didn't really have this thing about the preservation of the Quran for some reason. These reports say Ibn Masoud did not write 2 surahs in his Mus'haf. Discussing the case of Al-Fatiha above, we concluded not writing it in the Mus'haf is not the same as refusing to accept it as part of the Quran. See, they got to come up with these wacky excuses. Okay, because isn't the Quran a book? Al-Kitab, Nazalna al-Kitab. We sent down the book, and there it's preserved tablet. We learned that even after being told of Ibn Mas'ud's action, Ubay did not object. While it has always been an established fact in the House of Islam that rejecting even a single verse makes one a disbeliever and even liable to capital punishment, it is possible that Ubay would not react had he known Ibn Mas'ud to altogether reject the 2 surahs. Perhaps he knew that Ibn Mas'ud did not refuse to accept them. It was capital punishment for not having. It says if you reject 1 word of the Quran, you could be killed. And Ubay ibn Ka'b threw away 3 surahs. He just, Abdullah bin Masoud just said, nope, I don't want them. And they did. I think they broke his hip. They beat him up for this. Okay. But he said, no way, I don't want it. In fact, when Uthman wrote his Quran, Abdullah bin Masoud said, hey, you guys, all of you guys who have Qurans, because there was like 31 Qurans floating around back then, 31 different Qurans. Abdullah bin Masoud told everybody, hold on to your Quran, don't give it to Uthman. And if Muslims were obedient to Muhammad, like the Quran commands them to be, they would not have taken Uthman's Quran. They would have taken Abdullah's, because Muhammad said take it from Abdullah. But they didn't obey Muhammad. Okay, so interesting. He could have been killed for that. There's a death penalty for rejecting 1 word of the Quran. He rejected 3 whole surahs. 3 whole surahs. He just threw them away. He said, I don't want them. So, what's the verse, the hadith about rejecting? Muslims are doing that stuff all the time. Yeah. You know what? I don't know where that hadith is. Maybe I'll look at it. I used to go to a bookstore and I don't remember there being any in the religion. I don't know where it is, but I will look for it. Because I have so many things to show here, I'm not going to look for it right now, but I will look for it. But this is what it says here. It says, in the House of Islam, rejecting even a single verse makes one a disbeliever. You guys, there's an even nastier word for that disbeliever. It's kafir. You're a kafir if you reject 1 word. And even liable to capital punishment. And yet, Abdullah bin Masoud said, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. Throw it away. So, and you guys, this is all Islamic sources. Okay, I'm not making any of this up here. Okay, we learned that even after being told of Ibn Mas'ud's action, Ubay did not object. Okay, I read that already. Okay, perhaps he knew that Ibn Mas'ud did not refuse to accept them as part of the Quran, even though he did not write them. Okay, so they're playing they're playing games here now. They're having to play games because they're stuck with this issue, okay? As Suyuti quotes Abu Bakr, okay, who said, okay, let's see what Abu Bakr said. It is not proved from him that these two surahs are not from the Quran. He erased them and dropped them from his mushaf, refusing to put them into writing, not rejecting them as part of the Quran. It was like this because to him nothing was to be written in the mushaf except what was commanded by the Prophet, peace and blessings, and he did not find them written or heard an instruction in this regard. Whoa, man, are they doing gymnastics? Man, are they doing humongous gymnastics here? So Muhammad did not say those surahs? Are they saying, if Abdullah bin Masoud, Muhammad commanded you to take the Quran from him, and he did not hear Muhammad say those, then why are they in the Quran if he didn't hear Muhammad say them? Abdullah bin Masoud said that he had memorized 2/3 of the Quran before Zayd was even born. Zayd is the one who wrote Uthman's Quran. And here this guy is saying something that it was like because nothing was to be written except what was commanded by. So did Muhammad not command people to it? I mean, if you're going to take this explanation here, this is Jalaluddin Suyuti, you guys. This is he's a big deal. You know, Jalaluddin Suyuti, he's, you've heard of Jalalain, the commentary. Well, Jalalain means two Jalals. And one of those Jalals is Jalaluddin Suyuti, the guy that wrote this. And he's saying that Muhammad didn't command to put the Fatiha in the Quran. Yay. That sounds like a kafir right there. Okay. With the above points in mind, recall that Asim and Zir themselves recited the 113 and 114 with the rest of the Quran on Ibn Mas'ud's authority, with the same people reciting the surahs on his authority and then reporting him not to write them in his mushaf. The above explanation sounds best. Dude, they're really having to do some massive gymnastics here, dude. This is really hilarious, man. This is hilarious. I mean, you guys, Abdullah bin Masoud was very adamant. He was very adamant about not having these in his Quran. He didn't want them. Okay? And yet, look at all this catastrophe here. Okay? Ibn Mas'ud's beliefs. Before quoting the scholars on the essence of the whole issue, let me share further proofs that it is inconceivable to have Ibn Mas'ud refusing to accept these surahs as part of the Quran. Okay, it's inconceivable that he refused to have them, but he did refuse to have them. We know of a report telling us that the students of Ibn Mas'ud brought the fact of him not writing the surahs in his mushaf to the notice of other companions. So, some of his students went and told other companions that Ibn Mas'ud isn't writing these 3 surahs in his Quran. Mushaf means Quran, you guys. To the notice of other companions. It shows that the issue was discussed. And had he actually not accepted the surahs as part of the Quran, the other companions would certainly have corrected him. Dude, this is a lousy explanation. So very gymnastic. You get a gold medal in gymnastics for that one. You get a gold medal in the Quran Olympics for gymnastics, for mental gymnastics, to try to come up with that. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because he did not have it. And he didn't have it because he didn't want it. And they tried so desperately to get him to put it in, he wouldn't. Okay. And he even got his hip broken. Remember, they beat him up because of this. Other reports tell us that Ibn Mas'ud would discuss things with the companions, with other companions, and would not fail to revise his opinion and admit his mistake whenever it came to it. Well, he didn't admit this mistake. He didn't think it was a mistake. He was sure that these 3 surahs are not supposed to be in the Quran. Okay? So here's another. It says, when Abdullah Ibn Masoud was in Kufa, now this seems unrelated, but I thought this was worth reading anyway. He was asked for opinion whether about marrying the mother after marrying the daughter when the marriage with the daughter had not been consummated. Jeez. These issues that they said he had to deal with. He permitted it. Yeah, but yeah, he permitted it. Wow. And the Quran is so clear about this. It says you cannot marry the daughter if you married the mother and consummated the marriage with the. You can marry the daughter and you can have sex with her unless you already married the mother and had sex with her. The Quran says that. He permitted it, Ibn Mas'ud. Okay. When Ibn Mas'ud came to Medina, he was asked about it and was told that it was not as he had said, and that this condition refers to foster mothers. And Ibn Mas'ud returned to Kufa, and he had just reached his dwelling when the man who had asked him for his opinion came to visit, and he ordered him to separate from his wife. If this was the attitude in normal issues in jurisprudence, what would have been done with the issue about the Quran? Okay, so they had this kind of to show that how seriously they took these things, and yet when it came to the Quran, they weren't serious about it. Crazy. Okay, here's let me just look at the comments here real quick. Hey, confessing Jesus Christ. Yes. Hello, Truth Defender. God bless you. I have a stack of English Qurans, about 10 to 12 different Arabic ones. Okay. I'd be surprised if Scientology and any self-Dianetics used in bookshop. Okay. So, yeah, let's look at this. It says, one who rejected a single letter of the Quran is like one who rejected the whole of it. Whoever rejected one single letter of the Quran, it's as if he rejected the whole of it. He rejected all of it. One single letter is like rejecting all of it. Doesn't that sound like that one verse in the Quran that they took from the Talmud that says, he who saves one life is as if he saved the whole world? Okay, how is it that his students who discussed the matter with other companions would not mention this to him, and he would not then seek to verify it, while we know of his cautiousness on this issue, as he himself reports? Okay, look at the reasoning here. How could his students who knew about this not tell him, hey dude, you got to have these 3 surahs. You can't have 111 surahs in your Quran. You have to have 114, but look how it says it again. How is it that his students who discussed the matter with other companions would not mention it to him, and he would not seek to verify it, while we know of his cautiousness of this issue? He himself reports. Okay, this is what he says. Let's see if I get the Arabic here. It says, we differed about a surah. We said and differed. It has 35 verses or 36 verses. So we went to the messenger. Okay, he's talking about one surah that had 35 and they had problems. So they went to the Tamarina fi surah min al-Quran. فقلنا 35 آية 36 آية قال فانطلقنا إلى رسول الله. Okay, it doesn't really, I don't understand what they're saying with that, but it's trying to show how cautious they were. He was about the Quran, about getting everything just perfect, just right. And yet he was so cautious, such a perfectionist in getting the Quran right. And yet he had 3 surahs missing from his Quran. And he would not, he was anid, he was stubborn. He would not put them in. Okay, so, okay. The Muslims have all agreed that 113, 114, and Al-Fatiha, number 1, are part of the Quran. The Muslims have all agreed that these are parts of the Quran. And whoever denies this becomes a disbeliever. And whatever is quoted from Ibn Masoud in this regard is not true. Yabaye. This is from Al-Hafs. This is Al-Hanbali. Hanbali, you guys. Hanbali is a big, important person because, you know, Ahmad bin Hanbal, there's the 4 schools of Islam, Hanbali, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i. Those are the 4 schools of Sunni Islam. And this is one of the leaders of one of them, Hanbali. Okay. And he says, the report of this opinion from Ibn Mas'ud is a lie and a falsehood. Muhammad bin Nazim and Ansari, 1225 AD. So this is way 800 years later. But this was a big deal, you guys. Look at how they're trying to justify this. They were saying it's not true, but it's in their books. They're stuck with it. They can't do nothing about it. They're stuck with it. But he's saying it's not true. He's saying that this is not true. Look, poor babe.
It's okay.
Okay. So, all right. So this crazy, man. These mental gymnastics is just unbelievable. Okay, and here's the last one. Mus'haf, the same people. All right, there are narrations. You guys, there's more about this than I. But you know what's funny? If you look at every single one of their explanations, they don't make sense. They don't make sense. The fact is, their most respected hafiz, most respected author of, Menuminis, I don't know what the word is, the person, the guy who takes the dictation that Muhammad spoke Quran to. The number 1 guy Muhammad said take the Quran from him has a different Quran. And he would not change it, no matter what everybody told him, including that he's a Catholic. Okay, but all of their explanations about why he did this are pathetic. All of them are pathetic. So, but they're all pretty much the same, and they're all pathetic. Okay, so did you ever get the feeling the companions knew this was a joke, but couldn't say it for fear of death? I know, confessing Jesus Christ, not only do I think the companions knew it was a joke, I think the wife of Muhammad, thank you, Truth Defender, Menuisis. Okay, I think Aisha knew it was a joke, but you know what? She knew that it was to her benefit to play along. She knew, for instance, like remember when they came to a guy came to Aisha and said, "Hey, when it says that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is a sister of Aaron?" Oh, let's see, 1 second, you guys. Okay. Okay. When they said, a guy came to Aisha and said, "You know what? When the Muhammad says that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is a sister of Aaron," and the guy says, "You know what? She wasn't the sister of Moses, because they weren't in the same time period. There's hundreds of years between them." And Aisha at first said, "You lie." But then the guy said, "You know what? You look at history, there's hundreds of years between them." And then it says Aisha became quiet. And when that happened, Aisha realized that Islam was a scam. She realized she'd been lied to. She knew, and just by the stuff that she'd seen Muhammad do, she knew it was a scam. But she had a great retirement plan being married to Muhammad. She had immense power. She's called the mother of the believers. It was to her benefit to play along with this thing. And so she did. And so not just the companions, Aisha also knew that it was a joke. So very good observations. Okay. So, okay, let's just, yeah. Okay, let's look at this. This is the last one, you guys. So it says, there are narrations from Asim and Zir that Ibn Mas'ud did not write 113, 114 in his Mus'haf. The same people, along with other people, that's kind of like, the surah that talks about how many people were in the cave. Some people say 3 and a dog. Some other people say it was 4 and a dog. And some people know 5 and a dog. Allah knows. That's in the surah in the Quran. But anyway, here, the same people, along with other people, used to recite the 2 surahs with the rest of the Quran on Ibn Mas'ud's authority. So either the narrations are a mistake, or just like Al-Fatiha, Ibn Mas'ud had some other reason for not writing the 2 surahs in his Mus'haf. The narration that he categorically denied them being part of the Quran is defective, mu'allal, and strange, shad. Because it is a solitary report narrated only on the authority of Abdurrahman bin Yazid and contradicts the strongest and multiple isnads. The above details make it absolutely clear that Ibn Mas'ud did not in any way differ with the other companions and the Ummah about the number of surahs in the Noble Quran. Yes, he did. He did. And he would not write it. He would not write it. He refused to write it, and they beat him up for it. And when they wrote the Quran, when Uthman wrote his Quran, the Uthmani Quran, when he wrote it, Abdullah bin Masoud said, "Nope, I don't accept it. I don't accept it." And so, you guys, it's a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe for Islam. And yet you see all the mental gymnastics they're going through trying to justify it. So, yeah, so there you go, you guys. Take this and share it, you guys, because this is a catastrophe for Islam. And it's a catastrophe today because they're still telling people that every word is preserved perfectly. Abdullah bin Masoud, and you gotta always include the fact that Muhammad said, take the Quran from Abdullah bin Masoud. You're supposed to. He's the number one guy, Muhammad said, to take the Quran from. He's the number one guy. Muhammad said, take the Quran from. And he didn't. He took 3 surahs and threw them away. And I said, nope, I don't want them. So much for perfect preservation. So, all right, you guys. Well, here's a picture of me when I'm out with my cross. There's another picture of me holding the cross. Look how strong I am. So, okay, guys. So, yep, that's all we wanted to talk about today. Yeah, it's a catastrophe. It is a catastrophe. You're right. Even the imams today know it's a joke, but you're right. It's better to play along. It's better to play along, and just, hey, you got a Social Security, you got a retirement plan, and you're not going to lose your head because everybody knew you cross Muhammad, you're endangering your life. So they just knew, you know what? Let's just play along. It's better to play along with this thing. But they knew they had a disaster. And so hopefully tomorrow, you guys, I want to look at Ubay ibn Ka'b because Muhammad said, remember, he said from 4. So from Abdullah bin Masoud, Mu'az, Salim, and the fourth guy is Ubay ibn Ka'b. He had 116 surahs in his Quran. So tomorrow we're going to look at that. At how could they possibly have a Quran with 116 surahs? From the guy, Muhammad said, take it from this guy. And Ubay ibn Ka'b was a real interesting, he had a really interesting dilemma, his story. And he went, Muhammad really put him through the ringer, you guys. One time he doubted something, Muhammad, boom, hit his chest. He hit him, boom, on his chest so hard that his sweat jumped off his face, and, if you listen to, what's his name? Who's the guy who, the holes in the narrative? Who's the holes in the narrative guy? Yasir Qadi. When Muhammad hit him, boom, in his chest, it was like he was driving the doubt out of him, But in reality, he just was kind of letting him know, dude, don't make me any problems or else, So, yes, very cruel, extremely cruel. So, yeah, Yasser Qadi. So, anyway, guys, that's all that we have for you today. Appreciate you coming around, hanging out a little bit, and hopefully tomorrow we'll talk about Ubay ibn Ka'b. And by the way, one of the four guys. One of the four guys, his name is Salim. Muhammad said, take him, Abdullah bin Masoud, Salim, Mu'az, and Ubay ibn Ka'b. Well, Salim, you guys, is also very well known. He is very well known in Islam. He's very famous. And if you listen to Christian Prince, you know who Salim is. Okay, I might as well just do a test, a quiz. Who wants to tell us who Salim is? You're supposed to take the Quran from him, from Abdullah, Ubay, Mu'az, and Salim. Who can tell me who Salim is? We've talked about him a lot. And especially if you listen to Christian Prince, you've heard a lot about him. Does anybody know who Salim is? You can almost guess. He's very famous. Especially if you listen to Christian Prince, you absolutely know him. You only know salad. Salad? You mean word salad? Are you thinking about Kamala Harris? No, just kidding. Salad. He's very famous, you guys. You guys, every single one of you guys knows the story. No, it's not him. It might be. I don't think that's no. It's Salim. Salim. Remember Muhammad said, take the Quran from four?
Slave.
My wife cheated, you guys. My wife cheated, so sorry, guys, you're not getting the $5 because my wife, he was a slave. But there's something more important about him, too. Not just the fact, no, he didn't become a Christian. He was a slave, but there's something else about him. It's a very Mohammedan story.
Racist?
No. He's the guy, remember a woman came to Muhammad and said, "O Prophet of Allah, peace be upon you, my husband gets jealous Mahmoud, if only you can see when they are standing. And yes, indeed, by our Lord, it will say, taste the punishment. Hey, Mahmoud, you want to come on? If you want to come on, big. Houston got it. Okay. He's the first breastfeeder, adult breastfeeder. That's right. The woman came to Muhammad and said, my husband is always jealous. Abu Hudayfa is always jealous when Salim comes in. Because Salim was a little boy. They raised him from childhood. And then he grew up. He's reached puberty, and he had, the fuzz, the little mustache and stuff, because he was reaching puberty. And whenever he would come to their house, Abu Hudayfa would get jealous. And then Muhammad smiled And he didn't smile yet. He says, okay, breastfeed Salim. And she said, breastfeed him? He's a grown man. And Muhammad, he smiled, the wisdom. It says he smiled, and he said, I know he's a grown man. Go breastfeed him. This is that Salim. So you're supposed to take the Quran from him, you guys. He's one of the top 4 you're supposed to take the Quran from, you guys. So, okay. Anyway, Mahmoud, إذا بتحكي عربي حلمي أريك مرت. إذا بتحكي عربي وبتحب تيجي أهلا وسهلا بيك. Mahmoud, if you're a Muslim and you'd like to come on, I'm going to put the invite. You guys, please leave this for Mahmoud. I don't know if he wants to come on, but if he wants to. If you think I'm wrong, Mahmoud, and you would like to correct me, if you want to correct me, please feel free to come on. There's the link. Mahmoud, if you want to come on and challenge me, say that what I'm saying is wrong, please feel free to come on. Is that okay, dude? Huh? No.
Why?
And just because I don't want to stay up too late. Oh, he does have. Boy. Mahmoud, come on.
Mahmoud.
I have an uncle named Mahmoud. He's my favorite uncle. I love him so much. Okay. In fact, my uncle Mahmoud, he was the first Hajj, my family, my immediate family. I remember when he went to do the Hajj and he brought me a little television from Mecca. It's a little plastic television. And you look into it, it had a hole in it, and it's got pictures, and then you push it like this, and it changes different pictures of Mecca and stuff. So, all right. If you want to come on, Mahmoud, we welcome you. Or if you want to write something, go ahead and write something. If you have a comment about what I'm saying, if you think what I said is wrong, Mahmoud, this is all from your sources. I didn't make anything up. All of this is from your sources. If you doubt, I could show you the sources in the Quran, in the Hadith. Let's look at what Mahmoud did say. Mahmoud said, if only you could see when they are standing before their Lord. He will say, is this not the truth? They will say, yes, indeed, by our Lord. He will say, then taste the punishment for your... Yeah. Mahmoud, I used to be a Muslim. And I was devout, very committed. My family, my father was Muslim. My brothers and sisters are Muslims. My nieces and nephews are all Muslims. And, when I used to walk by churches, I used to spit at churches because I hated Christianity. But then Jesus came and showed me that he is the truth. Arikmert, I don't think he's Arab. Mahmoud, Hilmi Arikmert. I'm not sure what kind of language that is. I think that's Turkish, maybe Turkish. It's a form of Mahmoud. And if you want to come up, Mahmoud, we'll stay and wait a while for you. Oh, he's Turkish. Teşekkürat. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. Can you say what I'm saying? Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. Do you know what I'm saying, Mahmoud? What? Turk the land. Yeah. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. It means I want to sing.
Oh.
This Turkish girl taught me that like 40 years ago. Her name was Fatima. She was from Izmir, which Izmir is in the Bible, you guys. Izmir is an important city in Turkey. $5 to whoever can tell me where in the Bible you find Izmir. Mahmoud, son of evil earth, is the closest a Christian will come to being in hell, so you might as well live it up, because earth is the closest thing you'll be to heaven. Come on, Mahmoud. We're very kind. We'd like to talk to you. You had something to say. I know. I mean, you said something there, and so you must have been listening if you wrote a comment like that. And if you don't want to come today, maybe come tomorrow or another time. We welcome you. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum, which means I want to sing. I think I could sing a song and not be too loud. Do you think it's too loud now, babe? It's 11:30. Oh, he left Islam? Oh, you left Islam. Well, then you're one of us. I hope you left Islam, Mahmoud. Come on, Mahmoud. We'll wait for you, my friend. We want you to come on. If you are already a believer, come share your testimony. Mahmoud Ali Aga left Islam. Oh, okay. It's not Mahmoud, though. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. Mahmoud, if you're here, I'd like to ask you a question about Islam. Like along the lines of what we're talking about. How is it? Like the subject that we're talking about right now. If you have any questions about it, because I know if you're a Muslim, you were taught the Quran is perfect. The Quran is perfect. Nobody can change it. Because the Quran says in chapter 15:9, it says Allah sent down the Quran and He preserves it. Inna nazalna dhikru nahnu lahu lihafidun. So it's perfectly preserved. My question, Mahmoud, if it's perfectly preserved, Allah preserved it, then how come Abdallah Ibn Masoud took 3 surahs out and said, I don't want them? How could he do that when he's the one that Muhammad said, take the Quran from him? So, if you want to come on, I don't usually wait around this long, but for your sake, I'm waiting around, okay? Because I'd love to have you come up. And if not, Mahmoud, if you're still here, I think you are still here. If you are still here, I just want to ask you, this is a huge problem. It's a catastrophe for Islam. This stuff about Abdullah bin Masoud is a catastrophe for Islam. It's a catastrophe. Because I know Muslims believe the Quran is perfect and nobody can change it. Abdullah bin Masoud changed it. And he's like the number one guy. The number one guy, Muhammad said, take the Quran from him. Number one guy. And yet his Quran had 3 surahs, only 111 surahs. How could that be? It's a catastrophe. It's a big catastrophe. And so I understand. What I encourage you to do, Mahmoud, is to say to God, say, oh my Creator, please show me the truth. Show me the truth, my Creator. I just do that. Say that. Say, oh my Creator, Khaliki, show me the truth. Warini al-haq. اسأله إذا بتحكي عربي اسأل الخالق قول يا خالقي يلي خلقتني وريني الحق. He loves you. He died for you on the cross to save you. And if you won't come tonight, then I hope that you will come another time. There's the link if you want to come on. If you want to come on and say something, there's the link. And you're always welcome to be here. And because it's a little bit late, I'm not going to be able to sing for you. I'm so sorry. But if you come another time, I'll sing in Turkish for you. Şarkı söylemek istiyorum. Those are the only words I know in Turkish. So, all right, you guys. Well, okay, we'll wait 5 more minutes and see if he wants to come on. So anyway, let me just go back here in the meantime and just look at this, and here's another question for you too, Mahmoud. I'm sure if you're Turkish that you are a Sunni Muslim, and so you believe in Sahih al-Bukhari. And it says here, wait a second. Okay, I want to show you this surah in the Quran. This surah in the Quran says, look what it says, Mahmoud. I think you're still here, Mahmoud. Look what it says. It says, and Satan says to his followers on Judgment Day, has been passed. Okay, oops, let me show it to you. I want to show it to you. I can show it to you in Arabic. Mahmoud, look what the Quran says. It says, and Satan will say to his followers, after the judgment has been passed, indeed Allah has made you a true promise. I too have made a promise, but I failed you. I did not have authority over you. I only called you and you responded. So do not blame me yourself. I cannot save you. Okay. What he's saying here is that, you know what? That's not exactly the one that I was looking for. 1422. Okay. Surah An-Nas, 6, verse 6. Okay. Let me go back here. Okay. Let me see, 113. It says that Satan has no power over the true believers. Okay. It says Satan has no power over the true believers according to the Quran. Okay. And yet, Satan had power over Muhammad. Okay. Satan had power over Muhammad for a whole year. How could that be? How could it be that Satan was allowed to have power over Muhammad for a whole year? Okay, look what it says. Look at this. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. So this is a Sahih hadith. And it says, and this is narrated by Aisha, the mother of the believers. It says somebody worked magic on Allah's apostle. Okay. Oh, Okay? Till Allah's messenger began imagining he had done a thing that he really had not done. Okay? And for a long time, and there's other hadith that tells us exactly for a year. Okay? And it was the effects of magic, and magic comes from Satan. And someone worked magic on Allah's messenger. How could he put magic on Muhammad when the Quran says that Satan has no power over the true believers? Okay? Now, when I was on what was that den? What was the den? Hamza's den. I talked about this, that Satan has no power over the true believers, and yet he did have power over Muhammad. And how could it be? Okay, this is the verse. It's 1699. Okay, I just want to show you this. 1699. 1699. Okay. He certainly ليس له سلطان على الذين آمنوا وعلى رب. See, look at this is what the Quran says about Satan. 1699. Okay. He certainly has no authority over those who believe and put their trust in their Lord. He has no authority. Okay. This is about Satan. Satan has no authority over the believers. And yet, the Sahih Hadith says Muhammad was under witchcraft for a whole year. How could that be? How could that be? Do you understand, Mahmoud? The Quran says that Satan can have no authority, and yet he was under the power of Satan for a whole year. For a whole year, Muhammad was imagining that he was having sex with his wives when he wasn't. He was imagining it because of magic that was on him. How could that be when he supposedly is the best of believers, the best of all mankind, according to the Quran? An example for all humanity, and he was under the power of Satan for a whole year? What do you think about that, Mahmoud? Does that sound like a prophet, a true prophet of God to you? So, all right, you guys. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Mahmoud, come back. Go get answers. Go talk to your imam. Find out if what I'm saying is true or not, and then come back and talk to us. And if I'm wrong, correct me. Come and, you're always welcome. So, all right, you guys. Thank you for hanging out. And if you haven't done it, please do it now. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Yesur, sa'idni. Yesur, samahni. Yesur, udkhul albi. We love you, and more importantly, he loves you. Have a great night, you guys.
If you have ever wondered why dull apologists lie so much, it's because on a rare occasion that they tell the truth. This happens.
One of the reasons I accepted Islam was the scientific miracles. I'll be honest with you. And now we know that this whole scientific miracles was absolute nonsense.
You're going to have to repeat that.
That the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say.